What's up, guys? I just wanted to do a quick video about the race yesterday at Chicagoland. The only reason I'm doing the video is because there were several people that wanted to know my take on the race and what I thought of it. And this isn't something I'm gonna do regularly, but in this case, I'm gonna talk about it because it was an interesting race. So most people did seem to find more enjoyment with this race, and a lot of it really did have to do with the way the finish of the race. It was very exciting, and I agree it was. But I think that the race overall was one of the better races we've had in a while. And there's, I think, several reasons for that, which I'll get into, and then I'll talk about the finish. So like everyone else, yeah, I did find the finish to be very exciting and stuff. But I have more thoughts on that. But first I'm going to talk about the other stuff. Now, the race from the very beginning to the end, I found it very entertaining. And it wasn't that it was that different from other races. I think a lot of it the credit has to go to NBC. I think that the telecast, for me, is much better than the Fox telecast. It just comes across as a little bit cleaner and more professional, whereas Fox is more flash for me than substance. And you got, Waltrip. A lot of people don't like Waltrip. They find him a bit annoying and stuff. Personally, I like Waltrip. I like his personality. But with him, it's funny because it's almost hit or miss with him. Like, there are times he's really good, he's very entertaining, and he really does know what he's talking about, right? But then there are times where he could kind of be a bit annoying, and I'm not really gonna blame him. I think when you have these telecasts, it's very important to have chemistry, to have the right person with him, right? I don't know if they've paired him up with the right people. I think if you get the right guy to kind of be the yin and the yang with him, it would be a better telecast. And in comparison, I really enjoyed the NBC telecast. I really liked Junior more than I thought I would. I think he's pretty good. And the reason I think he's good is because he's not trying to be like the star of the show. He has more of a low-key personality, but he knows what he's talking about, and he's very insightful. And so I did enjoy it. I think he's good at it, and I think, he's new at this, so he's only going to get better. So I do look forward to seeing his work. And like I was talking about chemistry and stuff, I think he worked really good with Jeff Burton. I really like Jeff Burton. I think he's underrated. I think he's really good at these telecasts. He's very knowledgeable. He brings a lot of insight, and at the same time, he knows like where to keep that energy level. Like it's never like over the top, or these guys together work well together, and I think that they understand that the race has a story to tell, and they're there to translate that story and bring their own point of view to it without kind of being the story. And that's, sometimes that's not as easy as it seems. But overall, I loved the NBC telecast. I look forward to more races with these guys. I hope these two guys, they keep them together. I really don't know what plans they have for Junior long term, but him and Jeff Burton together, I really enjoyed it. The other stuff that I thought was really good, it was, that you had more than one person who was just dominating. You had several guys that had, throughout the day that had fast race cars. And, Al Mirola was really strong in the beginning, and then he had problems, he kept having the loose wheel problem. He had to, pit twice over a loose wheel. And it's a shame because I really thought he could have contended for a win, and that would have been really exciting. I'm not a huge Al Mirola fan, but I like him, And then you had Larson. Kyle Busch came on towards the end of the race. You had Harvick. You had Blaney for a little bit. And so and even Clint Boyer. Now Boyer was pretty strong in the beginning, and then he actually went down 3 laps at one point, and he was able to play the strategy to a point where he got his laps back. He finished in the top 5. That was an amazing story in itself. And this is where I want to give NASCAR some credit, because they do get a lot of criticism, and I myself have a lot to criticize for how they're doing things, but they've also done some positive stuff. And I think that the stage racing has really been a good thing. I love it. I think that if you took the stage racing out of it, it definitely would have felt like a different race. I've seen races where, I'm talking about before the stage racing, and I remember where there was no caution for like 2 hours, and you would lap the majority of the field. There will only be a handful of guys in the lead laps, and you need something to break up these runs, right, and give people a chance to reset, work on the car, and maybe become a contender. Also, guys that go down a lap or fall behind through no fault of their own, whether it's equipment failure or just getting caught up in something, you still have a chance. Especially with the stage racing, another thing that makes it exciting is that when that caution's coming, and you can plan for it and actually use that as strategy. So, before stage racing, you didn't know if or when a caution was going to come out, but at least with the stage racing, you can use that, to somehow play strategy and get a lap back. And this guy got back and finished top 5. So, if that doesn't show you, the benefits of stage racing, I don't know what will. So I know some people are still on the fence about it. I don't see why. I love it. I think it's one of the better things NASCAR has done. And if you look at it yesterday, I only remember 2 cautions that were not related to the stages coming to an end. So it was a great test. Because you didn't have a lot of cautions. So you still had these long green flag runs, and it was still excitement. I really thought everything came together. It was a really solid race all around. Now, most people loved it, and it was really because of the ending, right? And that's where most of the people are focused and talking about. And yes, the finish was exciting. I did enjoy it. You're not going to get this type of finish every weekend, right? And in a way, I think it's good that you don't, because if you did get these crazy finish like that every weekend, it would water it down. It wouldn't be as special. Like everyone remembers when Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch had that with just beating and banging to the finish line at Darlington. That was a long time ago, but everyone remembers that, and that was a great finish. I remember when McMurray nudged out Kyle Busch at the Coca-Cola 400 long fucking time ago. But you remember these great finishes because they're rare. You don't get this all the time, and I think that's what makes it special. And you do got to be careful about watering things down. When you overdo certain things, it loses its value. Which brings me to another thing. This is not related to the race, but since we're talking about some things where people are kind of iffy about, the playoff system. I've heard people that don't like it. They want to go back to the old way. And I just got to say, I completely disagree with that. I think the playoff system has been one of the better things NASCAR has done. Now, I do have a problem with the playoff system, but not that it exists. I think it's a good thing. Every sport should have a playoff system of some kind. The way it used to be, we've had many times where pretty much you knew who was the champion by August. And that's ridiculous. You don't want it to be that way. So I do like the playoff system. Now, my problem with the playoff system as it is I think they need to cut it down to just 10 drivers. Now, what I was just talking about watering things down, I think that's what NASCAR has done with the playoff system, where they just added, and now you got 16 drivers at the end of the year who make the playoffs or the chase. I think that really watered things down, and it really hurts the whole system, and it devalues the whole point. Like if they try to make a big deal out of the chase guys, right? Where everybody's seen it, where all 16 drivers, they're all photographed together around the trophy, and they try to make a big deal out of it, and it is a big deal, but at the same time, if it's 16 fucking drivers, it waters it down. And that's my problem with it. And when you look at the field, it's a 40-car field, and there have been races where there's only 39 cars. So when you only got a 40-car field, and to have a playoff system that starts with 16 drivers, it's too much. And when you take into account the fact that there's at least 10 cars out of that 40-car field every week that is pretty much field fillers, that even waters it down more. NASCAR needs to go back. I personally would cut it down to 10 drivers. I don't think NASCAR is going to do that, but if they went back to 12, I could live with that. 16 drivers is too much. It hurts. You're hurting your own brand by doing that. It's just too many. So that's my main gripe with the playoff system. But the playoff system itself, I think it's good. I think it pretty much works. And so that's my thought on that. So the race was very enjoyable. You had a lot of contenders. And now we're going to talk about the finish. Yes, the finish was exciting. I hate Kyle Busch. I did not like seeing him win. And I damn sure didn't like seeing him take Larson out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He ran him over. He just punted him out the way. It is what it is. Now, I don't really have a huge problem with it because, yes, once Larson got into him, he kind of dive-bombed him, and he couldn't hold it. That's what happens when you overdrive a corner. He just couldn't get the car to stay underneath Kyle. But you could see that he did back out at the end. He tried to stay off of Kyle and give him enough room, but he just couldn't. But it's Larson's fault for taking a chance. But you know what? Isn't this what we want? We want these drivers to go for it. We don't want them to play it safe. So I have no problem with Larson making that move. That was his one chance to take the lead and win, and he took it. So even if you're a Kyle Busch fan, I can't see anybody really faulting him for it. Now, he did get into Kyle, and he even created some damage. So I understand why Kyle went back and ran him over. So I don't have a problem with it. I don't want people to say, oh, you're a hater, and you're just taking sides. I got no problem with what Kyle did. I don't like it, because I don't like Kyle, and I don't like watching a guy run someone over for a win. There's a difference between racing hard and shit happens because it's just two guys racing hard for the win and just running someone over. But in this case, Kyle gets a pass because he got run into by Larson and he took his spot back. The whole point is that Larson would never have been in that position. He wasn't going to catch Kyle. The only reason he caught Kyle to make that move was because of lap cars. And one in particular, which is really catching everybody's fire, is Ryan Newman. Now, a lot of people hate Ryan Newman, including other NASCAR drivers. They don't like him. And the reason they don't like him is because he races them so hard. Now, this is where I have an issue with people, right? So we've talked about the ending of the race. Kyle Busch won. He deserved it. I don't have a problem with him taking Larson out. But he took him out, but I don't have a problem with it. It was a give and take thing. He got hit. He took it back. So he won. Congratulations, Kyle Busch, to his fans. It is what it is. It was an exciting finish. And it was well-deserved. And even Larson, applauded him, and he had no issue with it. This is why I like Larson. You know, I could see other drivers. I'm not going to name names who would probably have bitched about it. But he didn't. You know, he understood. Hey, you know, I got into him. I was going for it, and he did what he had to do. So I don't see why anyone should be upset with the finish. But going back to Ryan Newman, he drove hard. He didn't care who's on the lead lap. He didn't care who's racing for the win. He's focused on him, his team, and trying to stay on the lead lap, because what if a caution came out, right? He would still be on the lead lap, and then he could pit and get some tires. You know, even if they were scuffed tires, whatever, he could go from whatever place he finished. He might gain a couple of spots. Those are points. That's, you know, so this is where I don't understand. This is my gripe with this whole Ryan Newman and the fans and other drivers and all kinds of shit. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy, right? Ryan Newman did something that most people claim that they're in favor of. They want to see drivers drive every single lap like it's the last lap. They don't want people just taking it easy. They want people racing hard all the way to the finish, right? That's what most people claim they want. But then there's this idea like, oh, well, if these guys are racing for the win and you're kind of in the way, just get out the way. Now, to be honest, I don't really know how I feel, because I'm not going to take a hard stance on either side. There are times I could say, you know what, you could have kind of just got out the way. But then there are times I'm like, you know what, fuck that. You know, if you're about to get lapped, and a caution, you know, cautions come out a lot at the end of these races. That racing for that spot, it could make the difference of where you finish. You know, it could make several spots of a difference depending on a restart. So to expect someone to just get out the way. Now, if you're 3 laps down, it's different. Then just get out the way. But he was fighting to stay on that lead lap. And just looking at it from the point of view of what most people claim, I think it's hypocritical. I think that when it was Dale Earnhardt, people praise him, right? Oh, he was the intimidator. He was a tough driver. He didn't give anybody an inch. And that's what people claim that they love and that they respect out of a driver. But then when somebody like Newman actually races that way, and Newman reminds me a lot of Dale Earnhardt, reminds me a lot of Cale Yarborough. These guys are tough as nails. They didn't just give an inch to anybody. They went out there and they raced as hard as they could for every spot. But they get praised, or they were praised. But with Ryan Newman, it's like, oh, why you always race everybody so hard? Why don't you just, you know, get out the way if a guy's faster than you? Which is it? And this is the one thing I have a problem with people. There's a lot of hypocritical thinking, in my opinion. And I think if it was, you know, if it's one guy, oh, he's a great tough driver. You know, he drives hard. How many times have you seen Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Logano, Keselowski? These guys pull boneheaded moves, dive bombing people because they want a spot, causing a wreck, almost causing, you know, whatever. But people, you know, their fans praise them because, like, oh, these guys, this is what I want. You know, he's a tough driver. Rowdy Kyle Busch. Remember Tony Stewart? I mean, but with Ryan Newman, somehow it's like, oh my God, he's a terrible guy because he doesn't just get out of people's way. You know, I get it. It can be frustrating. And if you're a driver and you're trying to get a spot and this guy's just not giving you an inch, yeah, I'd be frustrated. But at the end of the day, is he wrong? I don't think he did anything wrong. Now, if he dive bombs somebody and just really wreck somebody or something like that, you know what? You got to take your lumps. You gotta then you're gonna, you know what? You are in the wrong. But you know what? He kind of was in the way, but he's trying to fight for that spot. You know, I don't know. And I got to be honest, I'm not really sure where I fall on this. I'm only sure that the criticism is, to me, hypocritical. You know, this guy has always been this way. He's a tough driver. And if I'm an owner, that's what I want from my driver. That's what everyone claims they want from their drivers. I don't want a guy just getting out the way. You know, if there's a spot to be had, those are points. And you're fighting. And your team, I guarantee you, his fucking team loves him. They know that he doesn't quit. So you're fighting hard. You're, you know, in the pits. You want your driver out there fighting hard. And it's 150 degrees in these cars, and he's not giving an inch. I say I got to give this man respect. And another thing, if you are one of these people who are in love with this finish yesterday and think it was the greatest thing, and I'm one of those people that I enjoyed the finish. Well, you know what? You should thank Ryan Newman, because he's the reason that this race came down to where it did. Because Larson was not catching Kyle Busch. You know, he was catching him and catching him and catching. Then he scraped the wall. And after that, it was like he wasn't going to catch. He just didn't have enough laps, right? It was because of Ryan Newman. And not just Ryan Newman. There were a couple of other guys fighting for spots. You know, so you had Stenhouse, I think, kind of got in Larson's way. Or, you know, Larson also got kind of blocked. So it's not like they just blocked Kyle and then got out of Larson's way. Both of them had to contend with the traffic. But at the end of the day, my point is that it's because these guys didn't just get out the fucking way. It created this exciting finish. So, you know, I don't want to hear the fucking bullshit. I don't want to hear about the greatness of Earnhardt. Okay? I'm talking about Senior and the Intimidator and these other drivers who are like, yeah, these guys they're out there, they're gonna take every inch they can get. And I love it because I'm a NASCAR fan, and that's what I want to see in a driver. But then you get mad when Ryan Newman does it. I just find that hypocritical, and like I said, he's the reason that this race finished with this exciting finish. If it wasn't for Ryan Newman, it would have just been, yeah, there was excitement with Larson kind of catching him, but once he scraped that wall, it was game over at that point. Until, you know, you had the drama with the lap traffic. So think about that. Before you can't praise this amazing ending and this exciting race and then at the same time demagogue Ryan Newman for for trying to stay on the lead lap. What if a caution came out and he actually stayed on that lead lap? Now he has a chance to put on some tires and make an adjustment or two and get out there. Maybe finish a couple spots even better. That makes a difference, you know? And sponsors, that's what they want. The teams, you know, I don't get it. You know, sometimes these fans can be fickle and you can't please everybody all the time. And I have criticisms. You know, I don't hold back criticism. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot to like and there's a lot of good stuff. And you know, I don't have a problem really with what Ryan Newman did. I could see sometimes where people get pissed off but you know what? There's one thing you can't take away from him. He's not a quitter. He doesn't just get out the way. You know, you want a spot, you better fucking take it. I thought that's what we want as NASCAR fans. I thought this is, you know, those are my thoughts on the race. I loved it. I thought it was a very exciting race. I love the NBC telecast. I really prefer that over Fox. I think that the Fox telecast could be better if they paired Waltrip up with someone different. You know, you got to have that good rapport. And there's other things Fox could do with their telecast to just kind of improve it. I think NBC's doing it a lot better, and it's a much more enjoyable experience. And another thing I forgot to mention that I really like, Fox does it too, so I got to give them credit. But you know, when they cut away to a commercial, but you still get to see the race, I like that. and I don't know if it's me, but I noticed that they did it a lot more with yesterday's telecast than we normally see it, and I loved it because you don't feel as disconnected when these commercials come on. So you still get a commercial, but you can still see what's going on, and I really like that. And I hope that these broadcasts are done with that in mind a little more, and because they did it really well. And like I said, I love this Jeff Burton Jr. Combo. They work really well together. Neither guy's trying to hog up like the limelight or trying to. There's nothing about it felt over the top or phony. It just came across natural. There was a lot of good insight. I really enjoyed it. So I'm interested to know if you guys really enjoyed the NBC telecast. How do you feel about Ryan Newman and what I was talking about? And of course, your thoughts on the race. I really did think it was an enjoyable race. It was one of the better races we've had in a while. And I think I've covered the reasons why I think the whole race from beginning to end was as good as it was. And I know most people are really focused on the finish, and rightfully so. It was a great finish. But I think that we should keep in mind that throughout the race, there was a lot to like. There was a lot of excitement. There were different guys who were contending throughout. Other guys had problems and were able to get back in contention. Boyer finished top 5 after going 3 laps down. And a lot of that, you got to give NASCAR credit. The stage racing, I think it works. Okay? Sometimes, you might not agree with certain things, but overall, it's a much better system than we had before. And what are your thoughts on the playoff system? I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think that it just needs tweaking. I definitely like that there's a playoff system. I think that the way it used to be with no playoffs, it was horrible. And there wouldn't be any excitement. Once August hit, you kind of knew who was going to win. And this is good. And it's a sport. Every sport should have a playoff. So I just think they need to cut it down to like 10 drivers. And I think that would be the perfect number. Because you could get the top 10 guys all deserving to be in the playoffs. And it wouldn't feel watered down. And I think that would be the best thing. I really think NASCAR should consider that. Trim it back down and get it down to like 10 drivers. 16 drivers is too much. And it just kind of dilutes everything. So those are my thoughts on the race. I appreciate those of you who wanted to actually know what I thought of it. And that's why I did the video. And I really don't have plans on doing a weekly review of the race. There are other guys who do that, and they do a great job. So, that's my thoughts on yesterday's race. And I look forward to your comments.